My review of the assembly process of the TEVO Tarantula is very, very positive. I was one of the first people to get this printer, even before assembly manuals were completed, and I managed to get it assembled with just one grainy video. Now there are more assembly videos coming out all the time, a full set by myself, plus some other community members as well. So the amount of information about this printer is growing. There's also a very active Facebook group, which always has people there to help you out. So, a very positive review for assembly, and we'll get on to the rest of the printer. First, let's get to the pros of this printer. One, it's very easy to assemble. It took me about maybe 3 to 4 hours my second build. The first one took a little bit longer as I was trying to learn how to assemble it together, but I would put probably the assemble time for most people around 6 to 8 hour mark. It's got an extremely good clone hot end that comes with this printer. Unlike other do-it-yourself kits where the hot end is just absolutely horrible, this thing is amazing, especially printing PLA. Both of mine I've had zero problems with the hot end. You do want to check it over and make sure everything is fitting well together, but it works really, really well. Using the aluminum extrusions for the kit actually makes upgrading it pretty easy. For example, if you need to remove the x-axis where the hot end is, you can simply loosen up 2 of those wheels and the whole thing will just pop right off. And then anything that you can get that can attach to 2020 or 2040 aluminum, you can build or print or buy and then put it right in those slots. I've built trays, tool holders, all kinds of stuff for the aluminum extrusion. So that's a really nice thing. The whole unit as a whole has a very minimum amount of parts that goes into the build. So you don't have a whole lot of like 30 acrylic parts that all need to get put together. It's a very, very easy build, very simple, a small amount of parts, and I like that a lot. It was packaged extremely well. The bags were labeled well. It was packaged in layers. So the packing slip actually showed where everything should be in the box. My first one, I was missing some parts. That was really, really early on. I think I was the first or second person to get this printer. They have since upped their quality control, and that's getting better all the time. The second one I got had no missing parts. Everything was there. Everything worked well. Let's see, what else have we got? It prints really, really well right out of the box. As soon as you get it up and running, it's not hard to start getting really good prints with this system. And that's really, really cool. And you start doing some fine-tuning on it and learning your slicer software, it's going to get even better. Especially at the beginning, you're not going to have a cooling fan if you're printing PLA, so besides making some boxes and stuff, it might be a little bit difficult to print some things unless you're printing some larger stuff. But once you get that cooling fan printed in on there, it prints really, really well. It's got an MK2 and MK3 style heat bed, so a nice thick aluminum. I guess there have been some issues with people with the larger heat bed that are having a hard time getting it up to temp for printing ABS. I know they're working on a solution for that. So are many of the community members. So keep your eye out on that. But it is a nice thick aluminum heated bed. And so far the staff at TEVO has been really good. They are very consistent in the Facebook group. They pop in and out of there to answer questions or take care of issues with quality control or replacing parts. And that's something you don't see very often from these do-it-yourself kit companies out of China. So they've been very proactive and jumping in there and getting stuff worked out. So that's awesome. The last thing that's really cool about this setup is wherever there's the wheel bearings, there's also these eccentric nuts that are really cool, and it makes adjusting the tension of the wheel touching the rail extremely easy. So you can really fine-tune it and get everything working great. So those are the pros. Let's jump into some cons. Like I mentioned earlier, the heated bed was having some issue getting up to temp for many people. I know they're working on that issue, so that's one thing to consider. The end stops are really bad quality and are soldered really badly, so a lot of people are having broken end stops when they get them. And then the issue is they put heatsink over the solder points, so if they are broken, you can't really see it. So the first time you go to home the system, if one's broken, then the bed's just going to crash into that side, make some awful noises. So I think even just, using some better wire or some better soldering You definitely want to check those out when you first get this to make sure those are all wired up nicely. The corner brackets that are used to hold all the extrusions together, the little tiny L brackets, the Allen screws, or the set screws that come with it, the Allen key that they send is not quite the right size. I think that they are standard screws, and then the Allen wrench is a metric size. So it really seems like it's easy to strip out those screws when you're really not. It's just the Allen key stripping. So you get yourself the right size Allen key, and those work a lot better. So that's one big gripe, is getting the whole frame together nice and tight. You got to kind of get your own tool to do that. I don't like how on the right side of the machine, the electronics and the extruder and everything kind of seems to be on that one side of the machine. So it all seems really, really cramped. So there's not really a nice smooth place for the filament to pass through up into the extruder without going past the PCB. I don't really like that. It would be cool if the extruder was actually mounted on the other side, which you could do yourself, and I am considering doing that. So that's one thing I didn't like. What else? The LCD screen, my first one came with a nice long cable, so I was able to mount it on top. The second one came with really super short cables, so you can't really move it anywhere except right at the bottom of the printer. And I know that seems to kind of be random. Some people get long ones, some people get short ones. So hopefully they can start including the longer cables in all of those. Oh, and again with the PCB mount, the USB cable that plugs in, the motor actually touches that as it moves up and down. The motor that controls the X-axis that's actually on the Z, that motor will actually scrape along that USB cord and push it a little bit. And I think over a long time that could be actually bad for the PCB. So I actually took my USB cables and I kind of shaved off all the plastic, so it gave a little bit more room to move up and down there. And finally, the bed being on a single rail in the middle can make the bed a little bit wobbly. There's been a few times I had a hard time getting parts off the bed, and as I wrenched a part off, I actually would knock one of the wheels off the track a little bit. So having that center mass it can make it a little bit wobbly, so we want to get those nice and tight. But yeah, besides that, that's really the only negatives. There's not a whole lot bad. Like I said, this thing prints extremely well. From the beginning, I've been having nothing but great success with it. And the community is awesome on Facebook, and we're continuing to do stuff to try to improve the printer, get it up to that, super high level, the highest level we can get. So I 100% recommend the TEVO Tarantula printer. If you're a newbie, or if you have a couple of do-it-yourself kits, I think you will really, really like this printer. It runs so nice. It runs so smooth. Give it a shot. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon.